And Chris, I'm not seeing the transcription. Is it on already? Yeah, so it's going already. Okay, very good. Oh, there you go. Beautiful. Thank you.
Ready?
Yes, you may begin.
Great, thank you, Ken. Good evening. It's 5:31 p.m. on Tuesday, January the 3rd, 2023. And I'm calling today's meeting of the Plum Springs Historic Site Preservation Board to order. Please silence all cell phones and pagers, please. Now may we have the roll call.
And I would like to first introduce our first meeting that our new Historic Preservation Officer, Sarah Yoon, will be conducting and supporting you on. So welcome, Sarah. I'm the little guy behind the green curtain today, pulling the buttons and levers.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. We'll do a roll call. Chair Hoff is absent tonight. Member Miller?
I'm sorry, was that me?
Yes, Member Miller.
I'm here. Short of hearing, but I'm here.
Member Hanson?
Here.
Member Rosenau?
Here.
Vice Chair Nelson?
Present.
We do have a quorum. Also, I see in the audience that Mayor Pro Tem Jeffrey Bernstein is joining us. Welcome.
Thank you. Here to listen and observe. So thanks very much for doing this.
Thank you for
Welcome.
joining us.
Great, thank you, Sarah. May we please have the staff report on the posting of the agenda?
Yes, the agenda for this meeting was posted for a public review of the City Hall Bulletin Board on the west side of City Hall and the Planning Department counter in accordance with the city policies.
Great, thank you. Does our board have any revisions to the agenda tonight? No. Okay, seeing none, may I have a motion to accept the agenda?
I'll move.
Great, motion made by Member Rosner.
Well, second.
Second made by Member Miller. So I have a motion by Member Rosner and a second by Member Miller. Any further discussion on the agenda? No, seeing none, I will call the question. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Great, thank you. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. 4 to 0, I believe, with 1 absent. Okay, thank you. Was that correct, Ms. Yoon? Yeah,
That's
great.
correct.
All right, so moving along, public comment. This time has been certified for members of the public to address the HSPB on agenda items and items of general interest within the subject matter jurisdiction of our board. Although the Historic Site Preservation Board values your comment pursuant to the Brown Act, it generally cannot take any action on items not listed on the posted agenda. There will be 3 minutes assigned for each speaker that wishes to speak. Testimony for public hearing items will be taken at the time of the hearing. Members of the public who would like to comment on all other items are directed to comment under this portion of the agenda now. Is there anyone here that wants to comment on a non-public hearing item or an item not on today's agenda? If so, please turn on your microphone, raise your hand, and give us your name and address for the record. Thank you. Okay. Being none, I think we can go ahead and proceed to the consent agenda. All right. So moving right along, for the board, do I have any revision to the minute of the prior meeting of November 2022? Member Miller raised his hand first.
Yeah, I would just note on the top of page 2, that the vote regarding the minutes included Vice Chair Nelson as a voting member while you were actually absent. So that was just a typo, I think, in the line of ayes.
Wonderful. We'll go ahead and get that taken care of.
Great, thank you. And Member Hanson, did you have something additional to add?
No, it was the same comment.
Great, thank you. I appreciate both of you for bringing that up to our attention. Any other amendment or revision to the minute? Okay, seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the minutes.
I
So
move to
moved.
approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Okay, great. So a motion by Member Hanson to approve and a second by Member Miller. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Great. Any opposed? Great, motion passes. I say aye as well, of course. So, for okay, great. So I just wanted to say thank you all for your patience with me tonight, as this is only my second time chairing a meeting, so I'm doing my best here. All right, so we're going to proceed with public hearings. So that would be agenda item 2A. That is an application by the city of Palm Springs for historic designation of the Security First National Bank, located at 500 South Indian Canyon Drive. And may we have a staff report, please?
Yes, give me just a moment as I pull up the presentation.
Thank you.
All right, is that visible on everyone's end?
Mhm.
Wonderful. All right. For the record, Sarah Yoon, Historic Preservation Officer and Associate Planner for the City of Palm Springs. The first item before you today is an application for a Class 1 site historic designation of the Security First National Bank. It is case number HSPB 137. The application for designation was added to the HSPB work plan on June 1st of last year and is before you today as a city initiated application. The property, as you see here, is located on the corner of South Indian Canyon and Ramon Road. And currently it is operating as the Union Bank branch. The property was formerly known as the Security First National Bank, which was completed in 1959. This is a one-story commercial building, which was completed in the post-World War II context. And it's during a time where it marks a change and vitality that was brought to the southern part of downtown as the small financial district began to emerge. The photo on the right shows the building right after its completion. Of course, both of these items or both of these drawings are sourced by the Palm Springs Historical Society. The photos shown here are of the existing conditions on the site today. HSPB did conduct a site visit. The unique massing of the building shows a play of solid and void. The exterior of the building is clad in masonry panels, and it does have a glass curtain wall at the main entrance. The siding of the building responds to both pedestrian and vehicular circulation, which is still in use today. The drive-through teller window, which was a new concept at the time of its inception, is still there, although it doesn't function as a drive-through teller. You can see the remnants of that. And the building incorporated public art along the northwest corner of the property where the original pedestrian entrance is located. These images here demonstrate again, the massing of the resource, and you can see the details of the exterior materials and also the landscaping in which the buildings are placed in. Staff evaluated the application first based on the listed criterion for the designation that's listed in the municipal code. I believe everyone's very familiar, but I did want to put these criteria up on the board. The criterion that staff found after its analysis for this particular project was criterion 2, 3, and 5 are met. In accordance to criterion 2, the artist associated with the bas-relief, Lawrence Tenney Stevens, is recognized internationally for depicting the American Southwest in a romanticized method through his art. And you find details of his life and his work in the report. Criterion 3 is met because the architecture of the building exemplifies an evolution of architectural style from a traditional neoclassical style to modernism. It does capture the shift of the financial banking industry at the time in Palm Springs, where there's a shift towards convenience and how the importance of the vehicular access is also being incorporated into the building. So there are a number of things that this shift towards modernism tries to incorporate. Criterion number 5 harkens back to this idea again of high artistic value and individual genius. The terracotta bas-relief panels commissioned specifically for this building depicts the local history of Palm Springs, and as a significant artist, the incorporated panels exhibit artistic value of importance. The details of the staff analysis are clearly outlined in the staff report. I just wanted to hit on just the high points of the criterion here. And then as part of the evaluation, secondly, staff evaluates the resource for integrity based on the code section 8.05.07.070.C1B, which talks about the integrity. There are 7 topics when evaluating integrity, and they're listed here on this page: location, design, setting, materials, workmanship, feeling, and association. Although there have been some minor changes that have been made to the property over the years, staff concludes that the site today retains historic integrity in all 7 areas. And again, that is clearly outlined in the staff report. This was incorporated in both the report, the staff report, and the application, the list of character defining features for this property. This list, as you can see, includes characteristics related to the building as well as the site, the simple orthogonal forms and the cantilevered canopies, asymmetrical facades, and the geometric forms of the massing with limited ornamentation, irregular plans. All of these are reminiscent of a modernist architectural style. There is the use of veneers of the natural stone, and the surrounding landscape was reflected as a natural desert landscape, which was purposefully cited for this particular building. The site placement, interestingly enough, also reveals the design intent of the architect and the designers addressing circulation specifically for both the emerging automobile and the pedestrian, the walking pedestrian experience. So all of these and the terracotta bas-reliefs are all identified as character defining features for this property. In conclusion, the Security First National Bank at 500 South Indian Canyon qualifies as a Class 1 historic landmark pursuant of the municipal code as it meets criterion 2, 3, and 5. The code is specific that at least one of the 3 criteria, one criterion has to be made. And in this instance, we see that 3 are met. And the property does possess a significant and a sufficient amount of historic integrity to qualify as a Class 1 landmark site. We do want to make note that the owner's position for this designation application, the owner does not support the proposed historic designation. However, staff recommends that HSPB adopt Resolution 137, recommending City Council designation of the site as it meets all of the needed criterion to qualify for a Class 1 designated site. The draft resolution is attached in your packet. It is attachment B. Unfortunately, the numbers kind of got skewed there in the packet, but It is following the vicinity map in your packet. So a draft resolution is located in your packet. And with that, I'm happy to address any questions that the board may have regarding the staff report.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, sir, for that wonderful presentation. Okay, are there any questions from the board at this time, of the staff? Sir, would you mind bringing the presentation down so we can see each other again? Thank you.
Mhm.
Wonderful. And Member Hanson, I see a hand raised.
I have a couple comments, but not really any questions. Is now the right time to just share comments?
Sure, unless anyone else has any questions, I don't. So go ahead, Member Hanson.
Okay, I just had a couple comments on the character defining features. One is the last bullet point, the lush landscape design. And then there was an associated footnote on that page number 3, which, you know, I think does a good job of talking about the landscape. But I guess I was thinking maybe slightly amend that, because lush to me is about the vegetation and the greenery. And the footnote is really relating to, you know, the ruggedness of the landscape. So maybe just incorporate that into a lush. And I just think it's important, maybe later on, you know, if someone wanted to change the landscaping and we're not specifically addressing, you know, the boulders and the rocks that are an important part of that landscape design. So maybe just a little bit of rewording. And then on the same, well, there's only one set, the character defining features, also the automobile centric design. I was thinking, and I'm not sure if we've done this, or at least since I've been on the board, actually mentioning the parking lot as part of the auto-centric design, certainly along with the drive-through feature. Because I think, you know, just the surrounding parking is definitely an important feature of the site overall, especially relating to auto orientation from that particular time period.
Okay, great. Thank you, Member Hanson. I wanted to ask staff if this would be the appropriate time for me as a board member to also make a comment along with Member Hanson.
Yes, I believe it is appropriate.
Great, thank you so much. I just had a couple observations and comments. Firstly, I wanted to thank Susan Sequoia Jensen for writing the initial historic resources report for this property, which I thought was very, very, very well done. And I know this process began over 2 years ago with the Preservation Foundation, so it's been a long wait. Also wanted to thank David Gray, who did some of the earliest research and reporting on the panel and brought them to the public's attention during Modernism Week about 5 years ago. So I think that was really instrumental in helping public awareness of this building. There's just one thing to note, that in the original historic resources report written by Susan Sequoia Jensen, on page 43 of her report, which is something I noticed as I was reading through, and it only caught my eye because I know this person. On page 43 of her report, where it says June 19, 2014, it mentioned the architect, and it incorrectly states his name as Rebel, R-E-B-E-L Young, when his real name is actually Ruel Young. So it's R-E-U-E-L. Pretty simple typo there, but thought it should be addressed since he lives and works here in Plum Springs. And then one other question, really, or comment, which I think I can address perhaps when we make the motion, but it's concerning black fencing that was placed on the property fairly recently, and it's just to the left of the terracotta bas-relief panel, and it actually appeared in one of the photos that Sarah had up in her presentation. I don't know why it's there. It's not adding to the building, so it maybe the applicant can speak to why that fencing is there. Maybe it's for security regarding transient, who knows? But I would like that to be addressed, and maybe we can, in our motion, consider whether that gets taken down or not. Not really all I have on that at that time. Okay, so any other questions or comments from the board? Okay. Seeing no further questions, I will open the public hearing, and if the applicant is present, I would ask them if they so choose to please come to the mic, give your name, location, and tell us about the project and anything you wish to say over the course of 10 minutes. And you will have 2 minutes for rebuttal if desired after any public comment.
Vice Chair Nelson, the city is the applicant on this particular application. So I think we just go into regular public comments, but you may want to allow the owner the opportunity to speak first within the regular allotted amount of time.
Great, that's what I meant. Thank you. And if the owner present, would you like to speak if so?
Yeah, so this is Brad Shelf. I'm one of the owners. Jeff Piper is also on the phone. He'll probably speak after I do. I want to thank you for the opportunity to at least address this. As you probably noted that when we did the field trip, that we are strongly opposed to the property being designated as historic. You know, the main reason is it will create a hardship for us as the owners of the property. You know, if you look at right now what the use is, it's a Union Bank branch. Bank branches are shrinking in size. The chances of us getting another bank branch should they leave is probably slim to none. So modifications would have to be made to the structure to get a new tenant in place. And by you limiting what can be done to the structure for a new tenant, it's going to seriously diminish the type of use that we can get in there. So we'll probably go from an A-class retail tenant to something far less than that. You know, you can already see what's happening with an A-class, and we were not aware of it. We got pictures today that there's homeless and some drug issues going on in the parking lot. And I just caution you that if we can't change the building, we can't lease the building, it gets boarded up, or we have a less class retail tenant, you're only going to have more problems in that area. So again, we strongly oppose it. I think the train's probably already left the station, but thank you for at least the opportunity to express our thoughts.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Is there anyone now in the audience who wishes to speak in public comment on this item? If so, please come forward and give your name and address. Each speaker will have up to 3 minutes. Anyone?
Can you say it, Jeff Piper?
Okay, sure, Jeff.
I'm one of the other owners as well. And I think the underlying part of this is, we understand what's happening here is our intention is to change nothing. If everything went perfectly, we wouldn't touch a thing. We're just concerned about what this is going to look like. Union Bank has been purchased by US Bank. US Bank has another branch just down the street, and one of them is going to go away, or all of them will go away. Who knows what's going to happen? So this is part of where our concern is. We're just trying to make sure that, you know, it's a great location, that it has a great tenant that represents what it should be, and that's better for all of us. And we're just, the limitations are just what's concerning us. That's why we're against it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for those comments. Anyone in the audience? I see David Gray raising his hand. David, do you have 3 minutes, please?
Yeah, I apologize. I didn't realize I had to call at 5 o'clock to get comment, but whatever. Thank you for mentioning that a few years ago, I did work with the Lois Tenney Stevens Foundation to bring awareness to these panels that are on this particular building. And I still think that they are very interesting and need to be preserved. And I'm 100% behind your making this a Class 1 historic building. I think that it's very unique, and some of the things in the report, although I read it briefly today, there was some comments about the landscaping. When that particular building was built, the tamarisk tree was on that corner as part of the property from the previous hotel kind of buildings that were there, and the architects and the owners of the bank at the time really wanted to incorporate the landscape with that tree. So that tree is still there. And I would like to make sure that somehow the landscape is a little bit more protected, although it has changed because it used to have a walkway and some water features. Basically, it's about 80% of what that building was designed for. The parking lot in the back as well was designed in the same way you pretty much see it today, so that cars, although there was a pedestrian entrance where the bas reliefs are, the parking lot was designed for cars, as well as the drive up, which is no longer used as a teller. But those are some things that I think are of importance. One of the things that sort of always bothered me, and hopefully this will change with this kind of designation, is that in some modernism and historic buildings, brochures throughout town, the date of this building has been incorrectly promulgated many, many times. So I would hope that the date of the building is corrected as we go forward, that it was 1959 and not other years that have been published. So those are my only comments. The foundation, I think, is still interested in Lawrence Tenney Stevens, and when I made the modernism lecture a few years ago, we did bring some of his sculptures to Palm Springs. So just those are my thoughts and comments.
Great, thank you, David. We appreciate you speaking tonight and for your presence. Anyone else wishing to speak on this item, please come forward now. I don't see anyone.
Hi there.
Time, okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, this is Chris Jarris. Can you hear me?
sure, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. I live on 534 South Calle Ajo, so literally across the street from the Union Bank. And I guess I have a question about this. I mean, you guys have heard my commentary on you know, and Brad alluded to it, and I couldn't agree with him more that, you know, if this bank leaves and this property ends up empty, that's bad. It's bad for the city. It's bad for the neighbors. And I don't understand why, if the owner is against having a designation that would affect their ability to use the property, why we would, as a city, want to do that. I mean, that you're affecting people who live in the area as well. So can you kind of comment to that?
Okay, thank you for your input. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak on this matter at this time? Okay, seeing none, I would offer the owner one more opportunity for rebuttal if necessary. But we've already heard from both the owner at this time, so I think we can go ahead and say that we have no further speakers on this item and we're closing the public hearing. All right. So
You know what I will, this is Brad again, I will speak. You know, I keep hearing the tablets being mentioned. We are happy to donate those tablets. So just keep that in mind, that if that truly is one of the main features. We're happy to donate that to a museum or the city hall or wherever you would like us to deliver them. We're happy to donate them. That's all I have to say.
I guess that's all from him. Thank you for that. All right, back to the board. Any questions from our board members for the applicant? Member Hanson, did you?
I have comments, but not questions for the applicant.
Sure. I think that is fine now, since there's no longer any questions for the applicant. I think we can bring it back to the board for further discussion. So please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to thank the property owners for attending the meeting and, you know, sharing your thoughts with us on this. And I've been in preservation for a long time, so your types of concerns are certainly not uncommon. But I also think that, you know, our job here today, as I'm sure staff has reminded you, and we also like to make sure the public understands, is really just to apply the criteria. Does this building or does this building not meet the city's criteria for listing as a city landmark class 1? So I think, you know, in my opinion, the staff report certainly made that case, as did the report that they commissioned and the previous report from Susan. So I think it's, in my mind, it's unquestionable, and I support the nomination of this property. But I did want to make a comment that, you know, it's really a great opportunity for adaptive reuse, and designation doesn't mean you can't do anything to a building. It just means that what is done is thoughtfully done so that it does retain most of the character defining features that were discussed in the staff report that make the building significant and important in the city of Palm Springs. We have a savings and loan that is now a museum in the city, so it can be done. It takes a lot of creativity and, you know, a lot of dedication. And certainly you have people like that in Palm Springs and people who want to come to Palm Springs and do projects like that. So I wouldn't necessarily despair that if this bank chain is closed or this branch, that there's no hope for this building, because I think there's a lot of hope for this building, and it's certainly in a great location as well. So I support the nomination, and those are my comments. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Member Hanson. Much appreciated. Member Miller, did you have anything to add to that? No. Okay, great. I'll go ahead now. Some comments too as well. Having been a customer of this bank for over 15 years.
For you know, other predisposing factors, if indeed it was from that type.
What was that?
Someone had their microphone not muted.
Oh, okay. Can I just ask that everyone please have the microphone on mute who's not speaking? That would be very helpful. Thank you so much. I'll go ahead and finish real quickly here. Having been a customer at that bank for over 15 years, from when it was Union Bank of California until now, when it's just Union Bank, even through the pandemic, I've seen it continue quite successfully as a local bank. I see lots of people from the community I know there going to do their banking. I'm friendly with the tellers there. You know, it's certainly a different world for banking today, but the building is much loved and celebrated by customers. I even remember going there when it was a playhouse for a brief period, I believe back in the 90s. So it is a very important building to the community, not just for architecture, but also as a meeting place. So, you know, sometimes the only time you see people is when we go to the bank. And in this post-pandemic world, it's so nice to be able to interact with people again and see them. I did want to kind of agree with Mr. Gray's comments regarding the landscaping, because that tree on the corner of Indian and Ramon is actually a mesquite tree, not a tamarisk tree, and it is an old growth mesquite that predates the building and is part of the former hotel that was on that site. So that is a wonderful contributing feature as far as landscape goes, and I really think that should be included. because it is, as far as landscape, a character defining feature in that regard. I also agree with Member Hanson's comment regarding preservation and historic buildings in general. And I think it's plainly clear from the 2 historic cultural reports that were written and the staff report that this building more than qualifies and meet much of the criteria for the Secretary of Interior standards. So I too will be supporting the nomination. And that's all I have at this time. Does anyone else have anything? Member Lyon or staff member Lyon?
I just want to share with the board that staff has had extensive conversations with the ownership of the building. We've talked about the permitted uses that are allowed in that zone, and we've walked them through the various procedures that are required to do any kind of alterations to the exterior of a commercial building in the downtown. So regardless of designation or not, the building would need to go through processes with the planning department for alterations. But I did explain to them at length that the work, as Member Hanson eloquently said, as if it's done harmoniously with the building, it can normally be found to be provable.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Lyon. Any other input or comment from the board or staff member Yoon?
I think that the staff report was well documenting the staff position, along with the comments about the landscape. There were some pretty detailed discussions about that landscape and keeping it that broad idea of the desertscape as in that footnote. Was trying to grasp at that, just being cognizant of including specific features becomes a challenge. And so keeping it that broad idea of the overall landscape was the intention. I just wanted to make that clarification.
Great, thank you so much. So going back to my earlier comment about the black fencing that is to the left of the bas relief panel in which we're get photos. Because I know I'm going to be making a motion here for nomination of the historic site, I just wanted to make sure that should the motion pass and it goes to City Council, that anything that were added, like this black fencing, which doesn't really contribute to the site, could be removed if necessary. I don't know what it's there for. I don't know if staff can help explain that, or perhaps the owner can explain it, but things like that that have been added just, piece by piece over the years that don't really make sense, and nor do I know if they were permitted. I just want to make sure that any of the ephemera or the extra stuff that doesn't really contribute to the site is allowed to be removed at some point.
If I can add, in terms of the fencing, it is possible that that may have been placed there as a building code requirement. It's unclear to me. I know that there is a ramp that goes up on that side of the entry. I think it's used as an emergency entrance as of now. And so it may be a building requirement. So it is something that we would like to vet with the other departments before we codify any sort of requirements and have that discussion and make sure that there's an alternative.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. All right. So being no further discussion. Oh, Member Hanson.
Sorry, I just wanted to, I think it was Mr. Jers who brought up the nomination of properties without owner consent. I just wanted to clarify, because it does differ from city to city, that in Palm Springs, the ordinance nominations can proceed without owner consent. So it actually is part of the city's preservation ordinance. I don't know if staff has any other clarification of that. No.
No, that's correct.
Okay.
A city initiated designation.
Oh, and I'm sorry, this one, yes, was also city initiated.
Correct. So city initiated designation does not require owner consent per the land use code. Thank you.
Right, and I would just add, Member Hanson and Sarah, that and you said this very well, Member Hanson, when you addressed it, we are looking at the criteria that exist within the ordinance and identifying whether this is a candidate for designation. And, our position is laid out in the staff report, and, you all will debate which direction you want to go in this matter. But really, it is looking at the importance of preserving these buildings throughout the city in accordance with our ordinance and other applicable law and regulation. And that is why we're here tonight. But thank you.
Great. Thank you, Christopher Hadwin, and Staff Member Yoon for the helpful comment, and Member Hanson for that clarification. I think the fact that the HSPB initiated this as part of the work plan really underscores how important we think this building is and why we're presenting it for nomination tonight. So, seeing no further discussion, is there any further discussion? I don't think so. Great. So may I ask the board for a motion, please?
I'll make a motion. I
can.
concur that the Security First National Bank meets the definition of a historic resource based on criterion 2, 3, and 5 of the Palm Springs Historic Preservation Ordinance. And I make a motion to adopt HSPB Resolution 137, recommending that the City Council designate this property located at 500 South Indian Canyon as a Class 1 landmark.
Great, thank you for that. And Member Hanson?
I second.
Great, second. Do you have any amendment to the original motion? No, okay, great. So seeing a motion by Member Miller and a second by Member Hanson, I think we can go ahead and take a vote unless there's any further discussion. No, seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 So the motion carries with 3 members voting, 1 abstention, and 1 absent. I believe that was correct, Staff Member Yoon? Great, thank you. All right, any opposed? No? Okay. All right. I guess we can move along. Wonderful. All right, so the next item on the agenda is number 3, unfinished business. And I believe there is none in that regard. So we can continue on to item number 4, which is new business. And that would be item 4A, 448 Hermosa Place, LLC, requesting approval for major alteration to a Class 3 site located at 448 West Hermosa Place. And staff, maybe please have a report on that.
Yes. Is that visible on everyone's screen? All right, moving on to the next item. This property is identified as a Class 3 site. And the application that's before you today, board, is a request for major alterations to this Class 3 site. This property, as you know, is located in the old Las Palmas neighborhood, and it is residential zoned. And staff and HSPB did conduct a site visit the site in December. These photos are representing the existing conditions of the home today. I wish I had moved that trash can that's sitting right in front of the front door, but I think everyone has an idea of the front elevation there. And as you see in these photos, the residence was designed as a simplified Spanish colonial revival style. And it was it was completed during the period known as Palm Springs Between the Wars. These photos that you see in arraignment, let me see if you can see it with my arrow here. The applicant supplied a drone photo of the site as a whole, which is quite helpful. And then we have the site from the street, which you can see with the wall and the shrubs makes it a little bit difficult to see, but that's the street view of the site. And then we have photos of that front elevation, the front main elevation, and then the rear and sides of the property. Just to briefly go over the proposed alterations, they do include a new addition to the rear of the property. There's some fenestration changes and landscape improvements that are proposed to the site. The massing of the front elevation remains relatively the same, with the exception of that gabled front entry, as you can see on the drawings to the right. And I'm sorry, for the record, has Eric returned back to the meeting?
Yes, he is.
Okay, great. I had a note here making sure that Eric gets back in for the second part of this meeting. So yes, as you can see, that south entry, the change here, you can see that the proposed front entry, there's a gable entrance that's proposed with this alteration. Going again deeper into the code language, specifically as a class 3 site, HSPB has two options. One, to place a stay of demolition of 120 days with the idea of pending for a redesignation of the site to a class 1 or 2. Or the second option is to take no action and allow the applicant to proceed with this project. In order to proceed with that stay of demolition, it's very clearly noted in the code that the site must be found to possess exceptional historic significance and meet the criteria for designation. While the site appears to have little or no change in more recent years, staff does find that the site is not an example of an exceptional representation of a Spanish colonial revival style architecture. We do have many examples in our inventory now, and we do not find that according to the criteria and the code that it meets that quality of exceptional. While the land is associated with local figures, as was brought up, the building itself isn't tied specifically to that association. And of course, the detailed analysis of the criteria is found in your staff report. In summary, the existing simplified Spanish colonial revival structure that you see at 448 West Hermosa Place did not meet the criteria in the municipal code to be eligible for a class 1 or class 2 designation. The owner's position for this property, the owners are not seeking designation status for this site and wish to continue with their project. And staff's recommendation based on the findings is that HSPB take no action and direct staff to work with the applicant to process this application administratively. We did include two suggestions listed below here. One was related to that proposed gable front feature to remove and maintain that simple front facade. And the second was to maintain the deeply recessed openings we find at the front facade, just to keep in character with that original design. Those are clearly suggestions for how the alteration could possibly move forward with a little bit more finesse, I guess, with the existing structure. But in terms of the findings, staff does not find that it does qualify to be designated as a class 1 or class 2 according to our criteria and according to the idea of an exemplary example. If HSPB has any questions related to the staff report, I'm happy to address those. Like I said, this is a very quick overview of the staff report itself. There's some detail in there. If you would like to go over those, I'm happy to do that as well. But I'd like to take, I'm happy to take any clarifying questions at this time.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Yoon. If you wouldn't mind going back to the regular screen. Perfect. Wonderful. All right, so I guess at this time, I'll go ahead and see if the board have any questions for staff at this time. No, okay. Any questions, or would the applicant like to speak and address the room? If so, please the board at this time.
Hi, I'm Denise Stajon. I'm the project manager from Richard Mannion Architecture, and I just wanted to thank you for your concern, your report. We agree with everything that's in the staff recommendation, and definitely want to preserve the Spanish colonial style of the house. The opening, the fenestration on the front will be set back as per your suggestion. So we have no problem with that. And I would be happy to answer any other questions that you may have about the project.
Does the board have any questions for this representative at this time? No, okay. So ma'am, I'm sorry, what was your name?
It's Denise, stays on.
Okay, great, wonderful. So just to clarify, you just say that you understood the staff recommendation and that the applicant is willing to go along with those?
I would have to verify with them on the idea of eliminating the front porch element, but the fenestration on the front will be set back. So that's not an issue. I should clarify, we're proposing that the windows be replaced with French doors to kind of engage the front yard, because we're transforming the front yard into sort of the outdoor space. So we want the owners want to have a little more connection, but the width of the the doors will be the same as the existing windows.
Okay, great. While I have you here, since none of my other board members have questions at this time, I have several. So at this time, from the street, you were unable to see the front facade of the house when the gate was closed because of hedges and whatever wall material and gates are there. Will that still be the case when the project is completed?
Yeah, that's their intention, especially since they're going to be putting the pool in the front. They want the privacy from the street, for sure.
Good, thank you. And are you able to, I may have missed it in the report, but are you able to share what the material will be of the new gate?
I don't know if we've decided, but I would imagine it would be wood. The gate at the street you're talking about, right? Yeah, I would imagine that the pedestrian gate and the garage gate would be solid wood, like I said, for privacy.
Okay, and then on the plan, it just shows existing driveway, and I would imagine that is going to be tied into the apron that goes all the way to the curb. It doesn't say anything about replacing the concrete or new pavers or anything like that. Can you clarify?
I think we probably will replace the finish on it, but not the shape of it. Because just because it is old and cracking. But again, I haven't gone over with the owners exactly what they want to do, but I imagine they might want to make that look a little better.
Wonderful, thank you for that. And just one or two more things here. As an HSPB member who did some independent research on this property on my own quite some time ago when it first came on the market about a year or so ago, it was very difficult to find proper chronological information.
Right.
So I did my best, and I know that may have been slightly helpful in the applicant's research. But then when I received the packet in the mail the other day, and saw additional supporting information and the staff report and so forth, I was thrilled to see some of the title history. And it would have been nice to see the complete title history, but what really struck me is that, as far as I could tell, this property was owned by Raymond Cree, who was one of our earlier pioneers, and he owned a lot of land throughout Palm Springs and the Coachella Valley. And it would seem that he bought it from the Bunker family, Zadie Bunker, and they arrived here in 1913. So that whole block was more than likely part of the Bunker compound, and it probably would have sold it to Cree, much later on. But it appears that Cree turned around and sold it the following day to John Chafee, who was a very local guy. He was the publisher of the Limelight News and a pioneer, and he was also a realtor. He worked with Harold Hicks, who was the son of Alva Hicks, who seems like could have been the builder of this house. And then, of course, I went down a rabbit hole, and it appears that in 1934, it was bought by Mabel Meyer, who was married to Mendel Meyer, the famous builder and contractor, who, if I read from the first line or two of his obituary, Mendel Meyer, veteran LA builder, dies April 2nd, 1955. He was the building contractor who built Grauman, Chinese, and Egyptian theaters, the Ninth Church of Christ Scientist, the Quimby Building, and other imposing structures in the city of Los Angeles. So it would make a lot of sense that he could have been involved in the building of this house. We just don't know for sure because we don't have any concrete paper evidence, which is really a shame. But a little further research shows that just down the street at 334 Hermosa Place is a home that Hicks actually did build for A.W. Stark in 1926. And the exterior wall of that home, according to an old photograph on file at the Historical Society, is almost identical to the exterior wall of that upper rooftop patio balcony.
Oh, with the scallops?
With the concrete that goes down and then up, kind of like the old world European style that you see so much of in Italy and places like that. So there's lots of links here, and it's a pity we can't really solve it all, but it sounds like you and the owners are really kind of sympathetic to the nature of the original design of the house and the history of the house. So I would just ask that you be mindful of that throughout the whole process and to follow the staff recommendations as much as possible.
Yes, definitely. That's what their intention is, for sure. Yeah, we got the title report, and it showed the chain of custody of the land, and it seemed to me that it was hard to say exactly, but it seemed to me that it was part of a very large parcel that was kind of moved around. That we went from it looks like the Bunkers owned it from 1927 to 1930, and then from 1930 to 34, it switched hands maybe 5 different times. So kind of sounds to me like part of a development but we're not clear on. Yeah, I was wondering from you what the date was of that fire insurance map, because that the only sort of concrete evidence I had of when the house was built was the title report going to Mabel Myers that said that gave sort of CCNRs for the property. And that the property that, like, the meets and bounds that's described in that title report corresponds to what they have now. So I think it's conceivable that they sold off that portion to be developed without any property, without any house on it. And but unless your fire insurance map dates to before before Mabel Myers owned the land, then we might say that there was something there. But unfortunately, from the title report, you can't really tell. It doesn't say anything about a structure. So,
I agree with you.
Yeah, so it's not our project. All of the addition is towards the back, so we're really kind of keeping the facade intact and just trying to make it better and
Wonderful.
a more exceptional Spanish colonial style than it is now.
Great. Well, that sounds lovely. So does anyone have any further comment or questions of the applicant? Okay. No members of the public wishing to speak on this item? Okay, great. Being none, I guess that we can call for a motion. All right, Member Hanson.
I move that with regard to 448 Hermosa Place and the property at, oh, I'm sorry, the property located at 448 West Hermosa Place, our recommendation be to take no action and allow the processing of a building permit and determine pursuant to SEQA that this action is not a project.
Well, second.
Okay, I'd like to make an amendment to the motion if possible. And that would be just that it include the staff recommendation, which is listed on page 1 of the staff report, to remove the proposed gabled front entry feature, to maintain the simple design of the front facade, and to maintain the deeply recessed opening on the front facade to keep in character with the original design intact.
I don't support that addition. I think we're basically saying that we don't think this property meets city criteria for designation, and staff has indicated that it is simply a suggestion, I believe is the word that had been used. So I would support the motion as proposed by staff.
Okay, and we have already heard from the applicant that they do support the staff recommendation, so I guess we can just leave the motion as it is. All right, any more board member comments on that? All right, may we have a vote, please? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Okay, it appears the motion passes with 4 votes and 1 absent. Congratulations.
Great, thank you very much.
Great. Okay, so moving on from that, it looks like our next item is item 5 for discussion. And I have something unusual here, which has been a long time coming, and that's item 5A regarding meeting format and time, in person or remote format, and possible start time. Staff member Yoon.
I'm going to actually take this for you, if I may, Sarah.
Yeah.
So as you know, the council is working on getting board and commission meetings open, but they are seeking the input from the boards and commissions themselves. So if the board would like to make a recommendation that it be going back to open in-person meetings, that would be what you would be passing forward as a recommendation to the city council. If you were looking and interested in still staying in the Zoom format, you can certainly make that ask. And if you are looking for a hybrid approach where there could be both Zoom participation at an in-person meeting, IT is looking into the possibility of putting that together as well. So what we're
actually, can I interject, because there's been some changes to that. So actually, the city council has recently determined that it is up to each individual board and commission to determine as an interim measure how they want to move forward right now. So we actually do, with the support of IT, have hybrid options set up, and in fact that is now a city policy. So if we go back to in-person Zoom in-person meetings, we will offer them in a hybrid format where the commission and certain members of the public and staff could be, in your case, in the small conference room here at City Hall, while other members of the public would be given the opportunity to join remotely, because we want to, keep that increased access open to people who may have been using those different formats of participating during these COVID years. We want to keep that open. So we would allow people the option of either attending in person or attending remotely, should they choose to do so. And so IT has us all set up in that way. We could do that for your February meeting should you wish. And so the question for you all tonight really is, do you want to start holding your meetings in person here, or do you want to, for now, remain remote via Zoom? I will say, before we sort of get into the discussion, that we do understand that the emergency order that supersedes certain portions of the Brown Act that are allowing us to meet remotely now will likely be lifted with the emergency order by the governor at some point in the spring. I don't know when. I'm just hearing at some point in the spring. That was, of course, a couple months ago, before this current uptick in COVID and other respiratory viruses over the holidays that we've been seeing. So I don't know if that timing will shift. But I will say that once that emergency order is lifted, we'll be into sort of a different world where we will need to be meeting in person with a quorum of the board members present in person. So that will shift later in the year. But for now, at least for the next couple of months, I think, the question is, do you all want to return to in-person meetings? There would be accommodation both for members of the public as well as, some board members to participate remotely should they need to. So happy to answer any questions on that. And sorry, Ken, I didn't get to update you on that shit.
Thank you very much, Chris. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Hadwin. I guess we can have comments from the various board members. I will just say very quickly that one thing I've loved about being able to Zoom is that I don't miss a word, because I have double captioning. I have the city's captioning, and then I have my own, which is just to make sure that everything is there and I'm not missing anything. So my request would be that if we do go back to a live meeting, that somewhere in the room there is a captioning device that captions everything that's being said. They do this in other cities during council meetings and commission meetings, and I believe it's a requirement of the ADA. So typically, it's easy for me to understand my fellow commissioners and board members, as well as staff members, because we're all sitting around a table and I can see them, I can hear them, they're loud enough, I can read their lips if need be, but it's hard for me sometimes to hear an applicant who's at the mic or, just something like that. So I think that would be my biggest concern, is just, if it's a hybrid meeting and we have some people on Zoom and some live, that the captioning or the access is there, not just for a commissioner who may need it, but for an audience member as well.
And just to address that, I will certainly check with IT. I think that that's a great point to make, and something that's very important that we resolve. I will say my understanding of how the hybrid technology will work without being an IT person is because whoever is in the room will be participating as though they're one of the boxes in the Zoom call right now. We'll have to have microphones and audio devices set up in the room that everyone's present in anyways to capture the audio, so that we could caption it just the way that we do now. So I like to think that there's an easy solution to that. So thank you for the suggestion, and we'll take that back to IT for sure.
Great, thank you. Member Miller, Member Rosenow, Member Hanson, any further comment? Member Hanson.
I just wanted to clarify, Mr. Had, when you said this is really just an interim decision we're making right here. Okay. If I'm making an interim decision, I would like to stay in the Zoom format as my vote. I do want to just say briefly, I serve on a state commission, and of course we travel to Sacramento quarterly for those meetings and then went to Zoom. And the meetings ran really well, Zoom. And I think a lot of members of the public, of course, that was traveling to Sacramento. It's obviously not the same for people who live in Palm Springs, but then they tried doing some hybrids, and it was actually very awkward because you had maybe 2 commissioners going to Sacramento. The rest of us are here. And it was the one that I did go to. It was, I don't know if they're probably working a lot of this out too, and it may not be a permanent problem, but we were not able to see the public like we can here in this format. We were listening to them and the audio was absolutely horrific. We missed probably 50% of what they were saying. So And then we immediately went back to all Zoom at that point. We tried it and there was one meeting afterwards where I stayed home and did the Zoom. So they did 2 meetings like that. We're back to Zoom again. But if we're doing an interim, I think maybe a permanent decision would be a little more of a discussion. And certainly, our chair would probably want to be on that. Chair Huff would want to be in on that discussion as well. But I'm all for Zoom as an interim solution.
And just to clarify my remarks about the temporary nature of this, as I mentioned, I understand the emergency order will be lifted at some point. Again, I don't pretend to know the governor's thinking, but when that happens, as I understand it, the Brown Act will require a quorum of the board to be present in the room in which is advertised for the meeting. I believe there are some changes to the Brown Act that came into effect January 1. I need to get a download on what exactly those changes are, but what I do understand that they are is that there would be exceptions, Member Hanson, as you're mentioning, should you need to be in Sacramento for something that might conflict with this meeting, you might have the opportunity to be remote in an HSPB meeting, should you be away, or of course for illness. But I do think, under the Brown Act, as I understand it, should the emergency order be lifted, a quorum needs to be present in the room. So yeah, that's why this is kind of being described as interim as a choice, because eventually I don't think we will have the choice.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hadwin and Member Miller.
Yeah, the only comment I would add to what Member Hanson said, I don't have a problem remaining on Zoom until such time that the governor, if he's going to lift the order, sounds like it might be within 2 or 3 months anyway, or 4 months. So I'm comfortable staying on Zoom until such time. Although on the other hand, I'm ready to move into in-person as soon as we all feel comfortable. But I think it's fine to defer to the state, since they're really keeping, kind of a complete sort of 30,000 foot look at all of the statistics that are going on with COVID and such. So I'm fine to defer to the state to tell us when we must go back to in-person meetings.
Great, thank you, Member Miller. Mr. Rosenow, did you have anything to add?
No, I concur. I was on a hybrid call a couple of weeks ago and it was a disaster. So until we're fully ready to get back together in a full time, I'm perfectly happy doing Zoom.
Okay, great. So there we have it. Doc Member Yoon, did you have anything to add there, or did we pretty much cover it?
I think we have the point to talk about in terms of time as well. Ken, if you wanted to elaborate on that piece.
Great.
Well, before we went to evening meetings, the HSPB was meeting Tuesday mornings, I believe at 9 o'clock as the normal meeting time. And so the board at this time can choose to continue to meet at 5:30 as we've been doing recently, or you may also choose to go back to a meeting time at some other time.
Sorry, just one clarification on that, Ken. That would need a decision by the city council. So this is where I think you were going with your last series of comments. If you wish to go back to an alternate time that isn't in the evening, that is where we are polling our boards and commissions and having them sort of make a decision at this meeting whether you want us to take that information back to the city council to see if you're able to change the time. So just a little clarification there. Thanks.
Thank you again.
I guess in terms of meeting time, I would just say that evenings have been nice. Maybe starting a little earlier, just so it doesn't conflict with dinner, would be my only suggestion or input. Mr. Rosenow?
Yeah, as I have a day job in an office, I prefer it after work, which I think is why the city went that direction. A little earlier is fine with me, 5 o'clock, or those marathon meetings that go until 8 or 9 o'clock are a little crazy, but they're few and far between. So.
Great. Anyone else, Mr. Miller?
Yeah, I would say I'm fine with starting at 5, let's say, but I think it's important that we have meetings that are available to the majority of the public, and that generally means in the late afternoon or evening. So I would not suggest we meet in mornings because I think that will, restrict the amount of participation that we get in these meetings.
Great. Anyone else?
Well, I'm good with a late afternoon, early evening, 5 o'clock. If we want to start a little earlier, that works for me.
Wonderful. Okay, there we have it. Mr. Lyon?
Thank you.
Okay, great. Wonderful.
Thank you for letting us know.
All right, so being that been satisfied for the moment, we'll just wait to hear back from city staff on this for our next meeting, and proceed to agenda item 5B, which is the 2023 Preservation Matters Symposium, and myself and Member Hanson on the subcommittee for that. So, Member Hanson, would you like to give a brief report or update?
I don't really have much to add other than what I did the last 2 months in terms of, confirming dates and times. I mean, where we are right now is working with all of the presenters and the folks that are going to be helping us with the production of their presentations. So every presenter has been sent an email. We're looking now, and they've been assigned a member of our committee, which, as I'd mentioned before, also includes Dick Burkett and our Catherine Huff as more of as an advisor, because we can't have more than 2 board members on our committee. So we've assigned one of the 4 of us as an advisor to each of the presenters to kind of, move things along. And if they have any questions, just be there to help and support, make sure that presentations are on point, and then they go into the actual production side by March. So another thing that we're doing this year that's different than other years is getting some, hopefully some sponsors. We do have one already who will be doing some refreshments, and we're following up with other folks and other ideas. We have a little bit of time for that, since we're not talking about, or we're not going to be presenting or putting this together until the end of April. But I don't know if, Jade, you have anything else specific you wanted to share at this point?
Sure, that would be great. Thank you for that. Yeah, pretty much echo everything you said. We're hoping to get our final outlines and descriptions of all the presentations by next week, maybe the week after the latest. And we'll be putting together a sizzle with our committee that's handling that's doing the production of the event. So we should have that hopefully as a rough draft to see by the end of the month at the latest. And so we should have a lot to report back on in February. And all of us are kind of quietly working behind the scenes and get everything rolling. And we're full steam ahead now that the new year has happened. And we have about 4 months before this goes live. So I think we'll be ready.
And staff has put a save the date on the website, and there are some flyers that indicate that as well. And I'll be working on revising some press releases for the coming months.
Wonderful. Mr. Lyon.
I just wanted to report that in speaking with IT, it does appear that the event can be recorded, and they're working on, they believe that they also have a program that would allow the recording to have the closed captioning of the event as well. So things are coming together.
Oh, that's excellent news. Thank you so much. Okay. All right. Any board member comments or anything on that? No? Okay.
Oh, sorry, not on that. Sorry, I was on the next item, board member comments.
Oh, sure.
Are we ready for that?
Moving away from item 5B, the last thing would be board member comment. So
I just wanted to say good job to Ms. Yoon on your first meeting. I know you're going to be great, pretty flawless tonight as far as I could tell. So good job on your part. I did have a question, actually. It was with regard to item 4A, but it's not specifically relating to that. So I just waited. I know we had another class 3 or 4 resource in the past that we took the same, no action, basically saying it doesn't meet criteria. Can you refresh my memory of, do those get removed from class 3 and 4? I know, Mr. Nelson, you had a little bit of concern about that, but, you know, because it's still part of the historical record of the property. But I hate to see property owners, and a subsequent property owner comes along and there's still a class 3 on it and has to go through the process again because it's flagged somewhere. So are those removed?
Yes, those are removed. And what we do in the class 3 list is when an item is removed because of an action by the board to take no action, the case number and the date that it was removed from the list is noted, and it is crossed off the list.
Okay, thank you. And then one other question, or just I guess it's a question. Do we have any new information on the Villa Roma nomination? Is that going to city council soon, or it is?
Sarah, do you want to answer that, or you want me to take it?
I'm trying to pull up the exact date here, but yes, it is.
Well, it's either going to go on to the first or the second meeting in January, or it'll be in one of the meetings in February. The city manager does put together the agenda, and so if there are pressing matters that need to be on the council's agenda, HSPB matters often get deferred to the next meeting, but we're tentatively scheduled for the second meeting in January.
So so the staff report has not been released yet on that. So once it is, if we have any questions about that, we can contact you and talk to you.
Of course.
Okay. I mean, is it okay to ask now? Well, I guess if you haven't finished it yet, I'm just wondering if it's going forward with our recommendation, or can you not say that at this time?
I can say that. When we have recommendations where a board or a commission has taken a different tack on the findings than what staff has, we put forward both recommendations for the council, and we provide the council the opportunity to choose one or the other.
Okay, so knowing that, has it been customary for a board member to attend the meeting to perhaps be able to elaborate on our decision and why we made our recommendation, or how does that work?
I will double check with the city attorney. The advice that had been put out a few years ago on that question was that once the board had spoken based on its vote, that vote was conveying the sentiment of the members. And they were encouraged at that point that if they were standing members, that they've already basically given their testimony through the process of evaluation. But I'm happy to review that question again with the city attorney.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, I would say that that's my understanding as well from recent examples with other boards and commissions where that's the same advice that we have given.
Great. Thank you, Member Hanson, Staff Member Lyon, and Staff Member Hadwin. Mr. Miller, Mr. Rosenau, any board member comments from you? Okay, I do have just a couple. Surprise, surprise. So the first is, I know that Sarah is new here, and again, I wanted to welcome her and congratulate her on a great meeting today, and also to thank Mr. Lyon for his tireless years of devotion to this board and all of your hard work with us. We know you're not going away, so we'll be calling on you for questions and advice over time. But that being said, I know that we never really got to a work plan for the current season. And I was just kind of wondering if in the next item, staff comment, maybe there could be a mention or an elaboration of how we might proceed with that. Maybe there could be half a work plan for the remainder of the season. And the other item was in my notes here, Bank of America restoration seems to be taking forever. And I'm just wondering if any light could be shed on a timeline there. And that's all I have.
Okay. Sarah, did you want to speak first? Do you want me to go?
I think it would be wise for you to go.
With respect to the work plan, typically we initiate your work plans in the summer. The last time we did it, we were running dreadfully late, and I don't think we got the work plan put together until September or October. We still have a couple of items on the previous work plan that we are still working on, and some that we haven't started. So my recommendation is that the board continue working on the current work plan and that Sarah and I will work to pull together the normal package in the June or July meeting so that we can then work through August to get the priorities put together and bring it back to you for approval either in July or in September.
Great.
On the question of the Bank of America building, yes, the building has been taking a long time. And yes, they've been running into a lot of obstacles and unforeseen conditions, as you often do when you're dealing with a 60 or 70-year-old building. So the thing that you will be seeing happening next on the Bank of America building, and this is the City National Bank at 588 South Palm Canyon Drive that we're talking about. The project involves the replacement of all the glass on the curtain wall on the north facade and on the west facade. In doing so, they will be putting up a temporary board or plywood partition over the entire curtain wall on both of those facades. They have suggested to me that they may need to start putting that temporary partition up as early as late January. I have recommended to them that it would be wise on their part to wait until after Modernism Week. Either that or they should have some signs on the building indicating what's going on so that all of the people that are coming in from out of town who haven't been watching HSPB meetings know what's going on there. The second thing that we just discovered late last week is that as they've been getting ready to do the re-roof on the project, there is a number of areas on the roof that have been ponding water. In other words, the water doesn't drain off to the roof drains. And what they've discovered is that the roof of that building is comprised of wood joists, which surprises me. I thought it was a steel frame building. Those wood joists in many locations have been cracking. And so there's a significant piece of structural work that's going to need to be undertaken at the roof level to repair the damaged roof joists. Following that, once they get that fixed and we've got the roof going in, current code requires that roof drains have a secondary or overflow drain. So in order to do the minimal amount of visual interference, I guess is the best word I can think of, they will be coming through with a proposal in which on the underside of the eave or the overhang, basically on line with the mullions in the curtain wall, there will be a round roof drain with kind of a flapper joint that will have to be installed in order to provide that secondary code required drainage off the roof to avoid winding up with scuppers cut all over through the exterior parapet. So they have a lot of work that they are doing. They are moving forward on it. It is taking longer than they thought because they're running into unforeseen conditions.
That is very informative. Thank you so much, Dr. Belian. I'm fortunate to hear so much of that, but hey, you know, it's the nature of these older buildings, and it sounds like they're taking the time to do it right. You touched on something I was really concerned about, and that is Modernism Week, and you know, the tens of thousands of people who will be like, what the heck is going on with that building? So a storyboard or, you know, a fabric screen in the window, something that says, you know, this is what's going on, and I don't know if HSPB has any budget to make a poster board to put up to help them out with that, but I think something is definitely needs to happen.
I believe the bank has sufficient resources that they can put up a necessary banner or poster to explain the work that's going on there.
Perfect, perfect. All right, so any other board member comments or staff comments tonight? No, okay. And wow, look at that, 6:59 p.m. So with that being said, I am going to go ahead and say that completes today's agenda. And thank you all for being present. And Madam Chair Huff will be gracing us with her presence at the February meeting. So thank you all for letting me stand in for her this evening. And this meeting is now respectfully adjourned to the meeting of February the second Tuesday of February, whichever day that is. Okay?
The 7th.
Thank you.
And congratulations both to Sarah for doing a fine job on your first meeting and to Jay again for pitching in there as vice chair. You did a fine job, both of you. Thank you.
And thank you to Mayor Pro Tem Bernstein for joining us tonight.
Yes, thank you for joining.
This was
Thank you.
informative.
Great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you all.
Good night, everyone.